Ethan Cole woke to the sound of soft breathing beside him. The air was cool, sharp with a metallic taste, and the dim light above flickered like it was tired. His eyes struggled to focus, and at first, he thought he was still dreaming. But then, a voice came low and gentle, almost a whisper. Easy, human. You've been asleep for 20 years. Ethan froze. The words felt heavy in his head. 20 years. That was impossible. His last memory was of a ship, a mission, and Mukfi. And chaos. He tried to sit up, but his body felt like wet sand, weak and unsteady. The figure beside him moved closer, and his breath caught. It was a woman. No, not a woman. Not exactly. Her skin was a pale silver, like moonlight made solid. Her hair shimmered with strands of soft blue light. And her eyes glowed faintly, not in an artificial way, but like stars reflected in deep water. She was beautiful and strange, and for a moment, Ethan forgot to breathe. "You are safe," she said quietly, though there was something in her tone. Not relief, but caution. She placed a hand on his chest, gentle but firm, stopping him from moving too quickly. "You must let your body wake slowly. The long sleep takes its toll." Ethan's voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Who are you?" The alien woman smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I am Lyra, your guardian," she said. "I've been watching over you." Her words sank in. Strange and unsettling, watching over him. For 20 years, Ethan's mind was still, foggy, but the more he tried to remember, the more his head ached. Fragments of his past flickered, a warning alarm, flashing red lights, the sudden cold rush of cryogas, and then darkness. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice low. Lyra looked away for a moment before answering. "Far from where you began, human, very far." Her eyes flicked to the shadows of the room, as if checking for something unseen. "This place is not for you to worry about yet. You must heal." Something about the way she said yet made his stomach tighten. He glanced around and saw that the room wasn't human-made. The walls were smooth, curving upward like the inside of a seashell. Faint lines of blue light pulsed across the surface, and there were no seams, no bolts, no signs of familiar technology. The bed he lay on seemed to grow from the floor itself. Soft but alive, Ethan swallowed hard. "You said I've been asleep for 20 years, he murmured. "Why? Why? So long? What happened to me?" Lyra's expression softened, but she didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached for a glass-like container filled with a clear, faintly glowing liquid and held it to his lips. "Drink first, then I will tell you." The liquid was cool and sweet, sending warmth through his limbs. Strength returned slowly, but with it came an ache deep in his bones. When Lyra finally spoke, her voice was almost too quiet to hear. "You were found drifting. Your ship destroyed. You were the only one left." The words hit him like a blow. Images of his crew flashed in his mind. Laughing faces, hands gripping controls, voices over, comes all gone. His throat tightened. "Earth," he said suddenly. "What about Earth?" Lyra hesitated, her eyes flicking again to the darkness in the corner. "It is not the same as you remember," she said simply. A cold shiver ran down Ethan's spine. "What do you mean, not the same?" But before she could answer, a faint vibration trembled through the floor. Ethan felt it under his hands. A deep hum that grew stronger. Lyra's head snapped toward the sealed door, her eyes narrowing. "We don't have much time," she whispered. Her hand went to a strange device at her hip, long and sleek, glowing faintly with blue lines. She stood between him and the door, her body tense. Ethan's pulse quickened. "What's going on?" Lyra didn't take her eyes from the door. "They may have found you," she said, voice like steel. "Who?" he asked, but she didn't answer. Instead, she stepped closer to him, her voice dropping even lower. "No matter what happens, stay behind." "Me? The hum in the floor turned into a steady thump, like footsteps, heavy and mechanical. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The shadows beyond the door shifted. And for the first time since waking, he felt truly awake. Something was coming. And from the way Lyra's grip tightened on her weapon, it wasn't a welcome visitor. In that moment, Ethan realized two things. First, Lyra wasn't just a caretaker. She was a protector. And second, whatever had kept him asleep for 20 years wasn't over. It was just beginning. The heavy thumps outside the door grew fainter. Moving down the corridor, Lyra didn't lower her weapon until the sound disappeared completely. Only then did she exhale slowly, her shoulders relaxing just enough to move. Back to Ethan's side. You're safe for now, she said, though her eyes still scanned the corners of the room like a soldier expecting an ambush. Ethan's heart was still racing. He tried to push himself up, but his legs felt like they were filled with lead. Lyra knelt beside him, looping one of his arms over her shoulder. Come, she said firmly. You need to walk again, with slow, awkward steps. She helped him out of the room. The hallway beyond was wider than he expected, glowing with pale blue. Light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. There were no doors like human ships had instead. The walls occasionally opened like flower petals, revealing other rooms. Everywhere he looked, the design was smooth, organic, and strange. Ethan tried to process it all. Where exactly is this place? Lyra kept her pace steady, guiding him along a medical ward. Inside the Coloron station, orbiting the star Mavirus, she replied. He had never heard of either name. They passed several alien figures in the hallway. Some were tall and thin, with translucent skin. Others had insect-like limbs that clicked softly as they moved. Every one of them paused to stare at Ethan, whispering in languages he didn't understand. It made him feel like a rare animal in a zoo. Why are they looking at me like that? He asked under his breath. Lyra didn't slow, but her voice was quieter now, because you are the only human they have ever seen. Ethan stopped mid-step. What? The only one. Lyra turned to face him fully, her expression unreadable. Your kind is gone, Ethan. She said softly. Humans vanished from the known systems 2 decades ago. The Kyloran records say no colonies survived, no ships returned. You are the last. The words hit him harder than he expected. He wanted to argue, to deny it. But deep down, he knew something had happened during his mission. Something big enough to wipe humanity away. He just couldn't remember what. They entered a large observation chamber through a transparent wall. Ethan could see the endless sweep of space far below. A massive planet of swirling gold and green clouds turned slowly. Dozens of alien ships moved in orbit, some sleek and beautiful, others heavy and armed. Lyra guided him to a seat near the viewport. You need to understand, the Council did not want you to wake, she said. Why? He asked. Her gaze drifted to the ships beyond the glass, because humans are dangerous, unpredictable, and valuable. Ethan frowned. Valuable how? Lyra leaned closer, her voice dropping. There are rumors of something called the Genesis. Code, a secret buried in human biology, a key that could shape entire civilizations. Some believe it is a myth. Others would kill for it. A cold weight settled in Ethan's chest. And you think I have it? Lyra's eyes held his, steady and unblinking. I don't think, Ethan. I know. Before he could respond, a sharp alarm echoed through the chamber. The blue lights in the walls turned red, and a mechanical voice spoke in a language Ethan didn't recognize. Lyra stood instantly, gripping his arm. They found us, she said, pulling him toward the far exit. Who has? He asked, struggling to keep up. The harvesters, she said, her tone like a blade. They collect rare species, and now that you are awake, they will not stop until you are in their hold. They hurried into a long corridor that curved upward, the red lights flashing in warning. In the distance, Ethan could hear strange, scraping sounds. It was like metal claws dragging across steel, echoing through the station. His pulse quickened with every step. As they rounded a corner, Ethan caught sight of one, a tall, skeletal machine with too many limbs. Its head a smooth dome with a single red eye. It moved fast, skittering along the walls as if gravity meant nothing. Lyra raised her weapon, firing a burst of blue light that struck the machine's chest. It reeled back with a screech, smoke curling from its armor, but it didn't fall. She pulled Ethan into a narrow side passage. The walls here were tighter, darker, lined with pipes that hummed faintly. "Where are we going?" he asked, breathless. "Maintenance shafts," she replied. "The harvesters are too big to follow us deep inside, but we must move fast." They crawled through the low passage, the sound of the harvester's claws still scraping somewhere behind them. Ethan's muscles burned, his body still weak from the long sleep, but the fear pushing at his back kept him going. Finally, they reached a hatch that opened into a dim storage room. Lyra sealed it behind them, leaning against the wall for a moment. Her breathing was controlled, but Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders. "This station won't be safe for much longer," she said. "They will call for reinforcements, and the council will not protect you." Ethan looked at her. "Then where do we go?" Lyra's eyes met his. "Somewhere they can't follow," she said. "But to get there, you have to trust me completely." Outside the sealed door, the sound of claws returned. This time, closer. The sound of metal claws scraping against the floor sent a cold shiver down Ethan's spine. It wasn't fast, it wasn't rushing, it was slow, deliberate. Like the thing outside knew exactly where they were and was in no hurry to find them. Lyra's hand tightened around her weapon, her glowing blue eyes fixed on the sealed hatch. Her voice was calm, but there was a tension beneath it. "They know we're here," she whispered. "And they're enjoying the hunt." Ethan's throat was dry. He wanted to ask 100 questions, but the heavy silence between the scraping noises made every word feel dangerous. He leaned closer to her, speaking so low it was barely sound. "Can it get through the door?" Lyra's gaze didn't leave the hatch, not quickly, but it will try. Harvesters are patient machines, and once they've chosen a target, they don't stop. The scraping paused, replaced by a faint tapping sound. Ethan frowned. "What's it doing now?" Lyra's jaw tightened. "Scanning," she said, mapping the room. Learning the shape of its prey, Ethan didn't like the way she said prey. "Okay, we can't just sit here," he said, his voice shaking. "Where's the way out?" Lyra finally looked at him, her silver skin catching the dim light. "There is a shaft behind those crates. It leads to the service tunnels." They moved quickly, but quietly, Lyra guiding him to the far wall where a stack of dark storage containers blocked a small hatch. She began shifting the crates aside with silent precision. Ethan tried to help, but his weakened muscles made it slow work. Every sound they made, even the scrape of a crate on the floor, made Ethan glance nervously. Back at the hatch, then the noise came again. Not the scraping this time, but a metallic thunk. Another thunk. The door shook slightly with each hit. Lyra's pace quickened, pulling the last crate aside to reveal a round hatch with a faint glowing outline. Inside, she ordered. Ethan crawled through first. The shaft beyond narrow, but tall enough for him to crouch. Lyra followed, sealing the hatch behind them with a soft hum. The walls here were lined with cables that pulsed faintly with light. The air was warmer, carrying a faint scent of oil and ozone. "Where does this lead?" he asked. "To the station's understructure," she replied. "If we can reach the old docking rings, we can steal a transport before they find us." They moved deeper into the tunnels, their footsteps muffled on the strange, spongy floor. The hum of the station was louder here, a constant vibration beneath their feet. Ethan tried to keep his mind focused, But every few seconds, he glanced back, expecting to see that red-eyed machine crawling after them. Halfway through a junction, Lyra raised her hand sharply. "Stop," she whispered. Ethan froze. From ahead came a faint, rhythmic clicking sound. It wasn't loud, but it was steady. Lyra motioned for him to stay still as she crept forward, peering. Around the curve of the tunnel a moment later, she pulled back quickly. Her expression grim. "Two of them," she said softly, blocking the way ahead. Ethan's stomach tightened. "Then we turn back," he suggested. Lyra shook her head. "They'll be coming from behind too. This is what they do. They corner you. Force you into a trap." Ethan felt the walls closing in. "Then what do we do?" Lyra looked down the side of the tunnel, her eyes narrowing. "There is another way. But it's risky," she said. "We climb." She led him to a vertical shaft where the cables ran upward into darkness. The walls were smooth, except for the thick bundles of cords that could be used as handholds. Ethan stared at the climb. "You do remember, I've been asleep for 20 years, right?" Lyra gave him a faint smile. "Then consider this your wake-up exercise." The faint smile didn't last from behind them. The scraping sound returned, louder now. Ethan didn't hesitate anymore. He grabbed the nearest cable and began pulling himself upward, his muscles protesting with every move. Lyra climbed just below him, keeping one hand on her weapon as they ascended. The shaft felt endless. The dim light faded until they were climbing. In near darkness, the only glow coming from the faint blue lines on Lyra's skin. Ethan's arms burned, his grip slipping more than once. Then, below, the sound of claws echoed up the shaft. Closer than before. Faster, Lyra urged. Ethan pushed himself harder, pulling until his lungs ached. Finally, a faint circle of light appeared above them. Lyra reached it first, pulling herself into another tunnel and offering him her hand. He grabbed it, letting her haul him the rest of the way, collapsing onto the floor, gasping for air. They lay still for only a moment before the sound came again. This time, it was right below. Lyra stood, pulling Ethan up with her. "We have to keep moving," she said. "They won't stop until they have you." As they ran, Ethan's mind raced. Why were these machines so determined to take him? What could be in him that was worth all this? And why was Lyra, a stranger from another world, willing to risk everything to keep him alive? The tunnel ahead sloped downward, leading toward a faint hum and the distant hiss of airlocks. Lyra glanced back at him, her voice low but firm. "Once we get to the docking ring, we leave this place. Ethan, after that, everything changes." Ethan nodded, but deep down he knew something. Whatever waited beyond that airlock was only the beginning of the danger. And the machines hunting him were not the worst thing out there. The tunnel opened into a wide, circular chamber. Dim red lights pulsed along the walls, and the deep hum of the station vibrated through the floor. Ethan could see the docking ring ahead, a massive curved corridor lined with airlock doors, each leading to a docked ship for the first time since waking. Hope flickered in his chest. Lyra slowed, keeping low, her weapon ready. "This is the last stretch," she whispered. "But the harvesters will expect us here." Ethan glanced around. Nervously, "Then what's the plan?" Lyra's glowing eyes met his. "Move fast, don't stop, and trust me completely." Before Ethan could answer, a distant clanging echoed from the far end of the ring. It was steady, metallic, and getting closer. Lyra motioned for him to follow. As she darted toward one of the nearer airlocks, the door was sealed. A faint green light blinking on its control panel. She pulled a small device from her belt, pressing it against the panel. Blue lines of light spread across the surface like veins, and the lock began to disengage with a soft hiss. Ethan looked back down the corridor. Shadows were moving, tall and spindly shapes gliding silently toward them. The red glow of the lights caught the smooth domes of their heads, each with a single glaring red eye. "Lyra," he muttered. "Almost there," she replied sharply. Her fingers dancing over the device. The lock clicked open and the door slid back, revealing a small docking bridge leading to a sleek shuttle inside. "Now," she ordered. Ethan didn't argue. Sprinting across the bridge into the shuttle's dimly lit interior, Lyra followed and slammed her hand against the control panel, sealing the airlock behind them. For a moment, Ethan thought they had made it, but then the shuttle's lights flickered, and a sharp alarm sounded. Lyra cursed under her breath. "They've locked the docking clamps," she said. "They?" Ethan asked. "The council," she replied, her voice hard. "They don't want you to leave either." The floor shuddered as something heavy landed on the docking bridge outside. Through the small viewport, Ethan saw a harvester pulling itself onto the bridge, its claws sparking against the metal. Lyra turned to him, her tone urgent. "Get into the cockpit and strap in. This is going to be rough." Ethan stumbled into the narrow cockpit, dropping into the co-pilot's seat as Lyra took the controls. Her fingers flew over the panels, bypassing safety protocols. The shuttle's engines roared to life, the vibrations shaking the seats outside. More harvesters were moving along the bridge, their red eyes glowing through the haze of engine exhaust. "Hold on," Lyra said. She cut power to the docking clamps manually, forcing the shuttle free. Metal groaned and sparks flew as the ship wrenched itself from the bridge, spinning away into the open docking bay. The harvesters reacted instantly, leaping from the bridge toward the shuttle. One of them landed hard on the hull, its claws piercing the metal. Ethan's eyes widened. "There's one on us." Lyra didn't look away from the controls. "Then let's shake it off." The shuttle shot forward, skimming the edge of the docking bay before diving through the shimmering blue barrier that separated it from open space. The sudden shift in pressure made Ethan's ears pop. Behind them, the harvester clung stubbornly to the hull, its limbs digging in deeper. Lyra angled the shuttle toward the station's outer hull, skimming dangerously close. Ethan gripped the seat as the gray surface of the station blurred past. Suddenly, Lyra rolled the shuttle sharply, scraping the harvester's side against the jagged edge of a communications array. The machine screeched and lost its grip, spinning away into the void. "One down," Lyra muttered. But Ethan's relief was short-lived. From the station's far side, several sleek black shapes emerged, harvester drones, moving fast and locking onto their trajectory. "They're following us," Ethan said. "Of course they are," Lyra replied, pushing the throttle to maximum. The shuttle streaked past the station, weaving through the field of satellites and debris orbiting it. The drones closed in, their weapons firing bursts of bright red energy that streaked past the shuttle's hull. "Can this thing fight back?" Ethan asked. "Not like their ships," Lyra admitted, "but it can dodge." She swung the shuttle into a tight spin, threading it through a cluster of broken station parts. One of the drones clipped a piece of debris and exploded in a bright flash. The others adjusted quickly, still chasing. Ethan's hands were shaking. "Lyra, why won't they stop? Why me?" She didn't answer right away. Her focus locked on the narrow gap between two massive pieces of station wreckage. When they cleared it, she finally spoke. "Because you're more than the last human. Ethan, you're the last key." Before he could press her for more, a warning light flashed red on the control panel. "Incoming," Lyra said grimly. A much larger harvester ship was dropping out of warp ahead of them, its black hull glinting under the distant starlight. It moved to block their path, weapons glowing. Ethan's stomach dropped. "What now?" Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Now we stop running," she said, her hands moving quickly over the controls. The shuttle's system shifted, panels opening along the wings to reveal something Ethan hadn't seen before. Weapon pods. She glanced at him. Time to see if humans still remember how to fight. The harvester ship loomed ahead, its black hull swallowing the starlight. Rows of glowing red eyes along its surface locked onto the shuttle, scanning, tracking, preparing to fire. Ethan's chest tightened. The sight of it was like staring into the mouth of a predator that had been hunting him his whole life. Even if he didn't know it, Lyra's hands moved quickly over the controls. Activating systems Ethan didn't recognize. Panels on the shuttle's wings slid open, revealing sleek weapon pods glowing with blue energy. "Hold on," she said, her voice steady but sharp. Ethan gripped the edge of his seat. "You said this shuttle couldn't fight them?" Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. "I lied." The harvester's ship opened fire first, streams of red energy cutting across the blackness of space. Lyra rolled the shuttle, the shots streaking past just meters away. She fired back. Twin beams of concentrated blue light shooting from the shuttles pods and striking the harvester's hull. The impact lit up the void for a moment, but the massive ship barely flinched. "They're too big to take down with these guns," Ethan said. "Then we don't aim for the hull," Lyra replied, her eyes locked on a display. She spun the shuttle in. A sharp dive, racing toward the underside of the harvester ship. Ethan's stomach lurched as they weaved between its jagged protrusions and heavy gun batteries. "There," she pointed. "The targeting array blind them, and we might get away." Ethan watched the circular cluster of glowing red lenses on the ship's belly grow larger in the viewport. The harvester tried to adjust its aim, but Lyra's flying was too fast, too unpredictable. At the last moment, she fired a concentrated burst. The array exploded in a blinding flash, shards scattering into the void. The harvester ship reeled, its weapons firing wildly in random directions. "Now?" Lyra shouted, pulling the shuttle into a steep climb toward open space. Ethan glanced back to see smaller harvester drones spilling from the crippled ship, their thrusters burning bright as they swarmed after them. "Great. Now we've made them angry," Ethan muttered. Lyra's voice was calm but urgent. "They were always angry. Now they're desperate." The drones closed in, their formation tight. Ethan spotted a warning light on the console flashing red. "What's that?" he asked. Lyra's expression darkened. "Tracking lock. They've marked us for retrieval. If they get close enough, they'll cut through the hull and take you." The words sent a cold wave through him. "Why? Why me? Why not just kill me from a distance?" Lyra hesitated, glancing at him briefly. "Because you hold something they need intact. Ethan, something inside you." Her tone left no room for argument. Ethan swallowed hard. "You've been avoiding telling me what that is." Lyra's gaze stayed fixed on the stars ahead. "Before your people vanished, they created something, a code, a genetic sequence hidden in the cells of certain humans. It's called the Genesis Code." Ethan frowned. "And I have it." "Yes," she said without hesitation. "It's a design for life itself, Ethan, a way to create or reshape entire species. It can heal dying worlds, or turn them into weapons." Ethan's mind spun, and the harvesters want it. "They've been hunting for it for decades," Lyra replied. "They've taken every human they could find, but you're the last carrier, the last one they haven't." Broken, Ethan felt his chest tighten. "So that's why you've been protecting me." Lyra's eyes flicked toward him, her voice softer now. "No, Ethan. I'm protecting you because you're human, not just because of what's inside you." Before he could reply, the console blared a shrill alarm. The drones were gaining, their weapons locking on. Lyra swerved sharply, pulling them through the jagged remains of a massive destroyed ship drifting in space. Metal beams and shattered hull plates spun slowly, catching the distant light like floating knives. The drones followed, weaving through the wreckage with mechanical precision. One got too close, and Lyra fired, her shot hitting it square in the core. The explosion sent fragments scattering, forcing the others to break formation. "That won't stop them for long," she said. Ethan scanned the debris field ahead. "Can we lose them in here?" "Maybe," she said, "but it's risky. This wreckage is from a war older than your planet. It's unstable." They weaved deeper into the wreck, the shadows growing darker. The wreckage groaned as ancient metal shifted. For a moment, it seemed. They had lost the drones, but then, from the darkness ahead, more red eyes lit up. A second squad had been waiting. Ethan's breath caught. "We're trapped." Lyra's hands flew over the controls. "Not yet," she said. Her voice low. "Hold on to something." She dove the shuttle straight down into a narrow gap between two massive hull sections. The walls so close that sparks flew as they scraped along. The sides, the drones tried to follow, but one clipped the edge and spun out. Crashing into the debris, another was destroyed by a collapsing beam. Lyra pushed them through, emerging into open space once more. Ethan let out a shaky breath. "You're insane," she smirked faintly. "That's why we're still alive." The harvester ship was nowhere in sight now. The stars stretched endlessly before them. Lyra adjusted their course toward a faint, glowing blue cloud in the distance. "Where are we going?" Ethan asked. "Somewhere they can't follow us easily," she said, "but it won't be safe for long." Ethan sat back, the weight of her words still heavy. He was the last human, the last carrier of something that could change the galaxy. And the only person standing between him and capture was an alien who had already risked everything for him. But deep down, he knew the harvesters weren't done. They would be coming again, and next time, they wouldn't stop until they had him. The shuttle glided toward the glowing blue cloud. From a distance, it looked peaceful, like a swirling mist in the dark of space. But as they drew closer, Ethan saw the lightning flicker inside it. Bursts of white light that danced through the haze. "That doesn't look safe," he said, his voice uneasy. Lyra's eyes stayed locked on the controls. "It's not," she admitted. "But the harvesters will avoid it. The storm scrambles sensors and shuts down their drones." The idea of flying into a storm in space made Ethan's stomach twist. But the thought of the harvesters finding them was worse. He tightened the straps. On his seat as Lyra guided the shuttle into the cloud, the moment they crossed the edge, the blue mist swallowed them. Static crackled across the windows, and the hum of the engines deepened into a growl. Bolts of lightning struck the hull, making the whole shuttle shudder. "How long can we stay in here?" Ethan asked. "Not long." Lyra replied, "The storm will damage us too if we linger." For a brief moment, it seemed the storm was working. The scanners showed no sign of pursuit. But then the ship jolted violently, a loud alarm blaring from the console. Lyra's hands flew over the controls. "Something's locking onto us," she said. Ethan's eyes widened. "I thought you said the harvesters wouldn't come in here." "They wouldn't," she replied, "but someone else would, from the mist ahead." A dark shape emerged, smaller than the harvester ship, but fast. Its hull was covered in jagged plating, and bright green lights glowed along its sides. "Pirates," Lyra said grimly. "They'll board us if they can, and sell you to the highest bidder." The pirate ship opened fire. Green plasma bursts streaking toward them. Lyra rolled the shuttle, dodging most of the shots, but one struck the left wing. The impact rocked the shuttle hard, throwing Ethan against his seat. A warning light flashed. "Port thruster damaged." Lyra muttered, her voice tight. "We can't outrun them now," Ethan said, panic rising. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Then we fight." She swung the shuttle around and fired, the blue energy blasts cutting through the mist. One shot hit the pirate ship's hull, but it wasn't enough to slow them. The pirates returned fire. Another blast slamming into the shuttle. This time, sparks erupted from the console, and Lyra jerked back with a cry. Ethan's heart stopped. "Lyra?" Her silver skin was scorched along her shoulder. Glowing faintly where the energy had burned through, she tried to keep her hands on the controls, but her grip faltered. "Take the controls," she said through gritted teeth. "What? I don't know how to fly this thing." "Now, Ethan?" He slid into the pilot seat, his hands trembling as they closed over the unfamiliar controls. The pirate ship loomed ahead, its weapons charging for another strike. Left. Lyra called. Ethan pulled the stick, the shuttle rolling just in. Time to avoid the blast. Now fire. He hit the trigger, the shuttle's weapons lighting up the mist. One of the shots struck the pirate's forward cannon, sending it spinning away in a burst of green light. "They're still coming," Ethan said, his voice shaking. Lyra's breathing was ragged, but she leaned toward him. "Head for that rift in the storm. It's narrow, but they can't follow if you make it through." Ethan's eyes locked on the gap in the swirling blue mist, barely wide enough for their shuttle. "That? We'll get crushed." "You won't," she said, her voice firm. "I trust you." The words gave him just enough courage to push the throttle. The shuttle roared forward, lightning striking all around them. The pirate ship fired again, but the storm bent the shots away. Ethan kept his eyes on the gap, weaving through jagged rocks and swirling clouds. The hull scraped once, twice, but the shuttle kept going. The pirate ship tried to follow, and failed. A burst of lightning struck it, the blast tearing through its hull and sending it spinning into the mist. Ethan guided the shuttle out of the rift, the storm falling away behind them for the first time in hours. The stars stretched open before them. Ethan let out a shaky breath. "We made it." Lyra leaned back in her seat, her eyes half closed. "You did well," she said softly, but her silver blood was still running down her arm, pooling on the floor. "You need help," Ethan said. "There's a place," she whispered. "An outpost." Not far. She fed the coordinates into the console before slumping in her seat. Ethan glanced at her, a knot tightening in his chest. She had saved his life again, but this time, he might not survive unless he acted fast, as the shuttle sped toward the outpost. Ethan's mind raced. He didn't know how to heal her. He didn't even know what counted as medicine for her kind. But he knew one thing. Without Lyra, he wouldn't last an hour. And he wasn't about to let the one person who had risked everything for him die. The stars blurred past, and Ethan gripped the controls tighter. This wasn't just about his survival anymore. It was about hers, too. The shuttle raced through open space, the hum of the engines steady but tense. Lyra sat slumped in the co-pilot's seat, her breathing shallow. Silver blood glistening against the pale light of the cabin. Ethan kept glancing at her between checks. On the navigation display, the coordinates she'd entered pointed toward a small, hidden outpost orbiting a nameless asteroid. It wasn't far, but with every passing minute, she seemed weaker. "Stay with me," he said quietly. Her eyes flickered, open, faintly glowing. "You're learning to give orders," she whispered, a ghost of a smile on her lips. "Someone has to keep you alive," Ethan replied, trying to hide the worry in his voice. The outpost appeared ahead, cluster of metal modules welded together, its surface pitted with age. It looked abandoned, but faint lights glimmered in the docking bay. Ethan guided the shuttle in slowly, unsure if whoever ran the place would welcome them or shoot them on sight. The docking clamps locked onto the shuttle with a metallic clang. Ethan powered down the engines and moved to Lyra's side. "Can you walk?" "I can stand," she murmured, though her body swayed when he helped her up. The docking bay was dim and smelled faintly of oil and dust. An alien figure emerged from the shadows, short, with wide eyes and skin the color of rusted copper. It wore a tool belt and looked at Ethan with suspicion, then at Lyra with surprise. "Kaloran," the alien said in a thick accent. "You're far from home. We need medical help," Ethan said, steadying Lyra. The alien's gaze shifted to him, its eyes narrowing. "And you're human," it said slowly, as if tasting the word. Ethan tensed, ready for trouble. But the alien simply gestured toward a side door. This way, the outpost's med bay was small but functional, its walls lined with strange equipment. The alien, who introduced himself as Merrick, began treating Lyra with practiced skill. A faint hiss filled the room as he sprayed a shimmering liquid over her wounds. Sealing the scorched metal-like tissue, she will recover, Marique said. But she needs rest. Ethan finally allowed himself to breathe. Thank you, he said. Merrick's gaze lingered on him. You are being hunted, the alien said flatly. Ethan stiffened. You know about the harvesters. Everyone knows, Marek replied. And now they know you are here. As if on cue, the outpost shuddered, a deep rumble vibrating through the floor. An alarm blared, red lights flashing along the walls. Merrick's eyes widened. They've found. You, Ethan's heart pounded. Lyra can't fight right now, he said, looking at her. Her eyes opened slightly, and she spoke in a weak voice. Then you fight. Those words hung in the air like a challenge. Ethan turned to Merrick. Do you have weapons here? The alien grinned faintly. Always. Moments later, Ethan stood in the docking bay again, this time with a compact blaster in his hands. Through the observation window, he saw the harvester ship smaller than the last one, but still dangerous. Sliding into position outside the asteroid, its drones were already deploying, gliding toward the outpost like silent predators. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He had never fought in space combat before. But he had something the harvesters didn't, a reason to win. Lyra had saved him again and again, and now it was his turn. He ran to the shuttle and powered it up. The systems came alive. The controls familiar now under his hands as the first drone neared the docking bay doors. Ethan hit the release and launched the shuttle out into space. The drones reacted instantly, breaking formation to surround him. Ethan's fingers gripped the triggers, blue bolts of energy streaking out to shatter the nearest one. Another came at him from above, but he rolled the shuttle, firing upward until it exploded in a flash of sparks. The harvester ship opened fire. Red beams slicing through the void, Ethan dove low, skimming the surface of the asteroid. Using its jagged rocks for cover, his mind was sharp now, focused. Every move fueled by the image of Lyra lying in that medbay, depending on him. He swung out from behind the asteroid and fired at the harvester's weapons array. The blast tore through one of its cannons, sending it spinning into the void. The ship adjusted. But Ethan was already moving again, circling around to hit its engines. A warning light flared on his console. Another squad of drones was incoming. Ethan grits his teeth. Not today, he muttered. He fired a charged burst into a rock face above, the drones shattering it into massive chunks. The debris fell into their path, smashing through the formation and taking most of them out. With its weapons damaged and its drones destroyed, the harvester ship began to retreat. Ethan didn't chase it. He knew they'd be back. But for now, they were safe. He returned to the outpost, docking the shuttle with steady hands when he stepped into the med bay. Lyra was sitting up, her eyes brighter. You're alive, she said, relief in her voice. So are you, he replied. You fought them, she said, studying him with something like pride. Ethan nodded. I told you, I'm not going to let you do this alone. Merrick looked between them, shaking his head. You two just made yourselves enemies to more than the harvesters. He said, the council will hear about this. Ethan met Lyra's gaze. Then we'll give them something worth hearing about. She smiled faintly. Welcome to the fight. Ethan Cole. The outpost lights dimmed. The stars beyond the window endless and cold. But for the first time since waking, Ethan didn't feel lost. He had a purpose. He had an ally, and together they would make sure humanity's last hope and Lyra stayed free.